Hey, Foot Clan, just a reminder to everybody that is with us over on jointhefoot.com. Today is the Footcast, so make sure you check out this podcast and the podcast special over on jointhefoot.com.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome to the show. Welcome back. Welcome in. Welcome all from all countries around the world. It's the Fantasy Footballers, Andy, Mike, and Jason, back again. Thursday, October 20th. What are you guys doing for Halloween?
I'll be walking the kiddos around and getting candy.
Yeah, the dad perspective on Halloween here is last year or 2 years ago, we had one neighborhood where a family was sitting out front cooking hot dogs, and I'm really just hoping that we can accomplish this again by going back to that neighborhood.
We had a house similar to that. They had like a big party, and there was popcorn and not ices, but
they call
snow.
hot dogs.
This is a good story, bro.
I'm trying now. I've lost the word. The sign. I've got a problem with the sinuses today. It's slowing down the brain.
Hot dogs are the candy
snow cone.
Candy for adults.
A snow cone, which we could eat snow cones on Halloween in Arizona.
Yeah,
that's how we roll.
That's true. So
They do melt pretty fast out here, though.
yeah, my boy's doing the Pokemon. One of them's Pokemon. One of them's Luigi.
I've got the Mario counterpart.
Yes, you do. I think we will be.
My son was dead set he was going to be Frankenstein. Until last week, I introduced him to Darkwing Duck.
Oh,
And he wants to be Darkwing
And now he
Duck.
wants to be Darkwing Duck.
Very nice.
That seems like a difficult one to pull off.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait, the real question is,
How do you get a beat?
look, our Halloween show's got to be coming up soon.
Yes.
Do you two gentlemen have your Halloween costumes prepared for our Fantasy Sports Network show and our YouTube show? Because I do. I've got mine ready now.
I
of
cannot
course you do.
I
Your
cannot
wife
confirm or deny.
Your wife has like 75 backup emergency costumes waiting for you at all times.
That's true.
All right, we're going to get into the show today. Second half of the matchup. Starts of the week. You know how much I love it.
This is your favorite
half.
show.
It's the
It's my
first
favorite
half of the
show.
matchups, but that's all right.
Wait. Yes, it's the first half.
It's only Thursday.
Yeah, I guess I skipped ahead there a little bit. We have a good quick question. It's a commissioner-related question. But I think at first, what, are we starting out here? Jason, you have a little...
Sure, yeah.
We were just saying how accurate you were, so
yeah.
continue.
On the heels of my number one ranking, I come in and I tell everybody, hey, you gotta pump the brakes on Kristen Michael. And some people rightly pointed out that some of the reasons I gave, like the fact that, I don't know, they play Carolina off a bye next week, or that they have their bye the following week, is absolutely 100% a lie. They've actually already had their bye, and I was an idiot because all day I was like, what in the world did I see? You know, I don't just make things up out of no. And I realized
Not most of the time.
Oh, not most of the time. And I realized I had
You were looking at
traversed
the
over. He's playing Arizona this week, and I had looked at Arizona's schedule, which next week goes up against Carolina and then has their bye. I merged the two for the idiot part of the idiot savant.
So what you're saying, though, is if Kristen Michaels traded to the Cardinals, you'd pump the brakes based on his schedule.
Yes, I would still say I don't like Kristen Michael a lot this week. Next week he's got New Orleans. Looks fine. When Thomas Rawls comes back, I still don't think he will be a top flight option. So I'm not, look, I'll drive Kristen Michael no problem next week against New Orleans.
All right. Did you say you drive him?
As
going
opposed
with the
to pumping
cars.
the brakes,
Okay.
Full throttle.
Well, you have the Rolls Royce too in the mix.
And he's there, man.
Right.
Rolls-Royce cannot get out of the repair shop.
Quick question. Yeah, let's just lay it on thick, Mike. Quick question, fair or foul? In a season, in-season trades for draft picks, where a player knows that they are out of the playoffs, starts trading their studs away for draft picks, this commissioner believes it should be disallowed, as the player will be playing just for next year and give an unfair advantage and almost guarantee a championship to an already stacked team. This is a great question. This is a question I just answered from another listener
It's a very common question and a very common issue even for us. In our League of Records, this is something that has always bothered me. Our league generally does not have a whole lot of parity because you have your superpowers and you're rebuilding teams. And you know, and I would say this. For my answer, is it fair or foul? It's absolutely fair. If those are the rules set up in your league, you should do it. You should take advantage of making sure that you're the best you can be if your rules allow it.
Yeah, because what you're saying is if you're in a league where you can trade for draft picks and an owner is supposed to be thinking about more than 1 year, you can't stop somebody from doing something that's in the best interest of their team. And if the best interest of their team is trading a stud for draft picks, then that's the rules of your league. Now, we do things in our league to, I guess, incentivize or protect against tanking, against this scenario, or at least making it more challenging. And what we do is we move our trade deadline up significantly so that those teams, you have less teams that know they're out of it, so there are less teams that are trying to do this, and you force some middle-range teams to kind of decide at the trade deadline, do I think I want to make a run for it, or do I want to trade a couple guys?
Yeah,
our deadline is next week.
That's right.
And that is, if you're going, whoa, your trade deadline's already here next week. I agree. This is way earlier than I would normally put it if you're in a league that doesn't trade draft picks.
We also make our first round a lottery for the bottom 4 teams in the league. So you aren't guaranteed to get the first pick in the draft if you finish last.
And most importantly, I think for avoiding tanking, is that whoever finishes last, the other 11 owners get to spin the wheel of water and douse that person in water, and they draft soaking wet. Nobody wants that.
They have to sit there soaking wet.
Soggy
whole
bottoms.
Draft. Soggy bottoms. Anything else for that question?
No, not for that question. I have a quick note for the weekly Periscope. It will be 1 hour earlier this week. It will be at 8 a.m. Pacific.
Has any Mike Wright ever been up that early?
Every day.
I know, but
Because
I'm surprised. Well, you're moving it up. You got some plans?
The kiddos are performing at the church,
Okay.
doing some singing, so I got to go check that out.
So you're periscoping a little early.
Yep.
Okay. Few notes about the show. Jason mentioned it earlier. We're on the Fantasy Sports Network and YouTube if you want to watch us. You can find us on Twitter at the FF Ballers, and the website is thefantasyfootballers.com. All of our Week 7 rankings are up on the website today. So the traffic shall be heavy over on the website. You can find us on Patreon, jointhefoot.com, support the podcast. And Mike said the Periscope's happening on Sunday. We've got a number of articles going up on the website today as well. And so plenty of things going on. Now, we're going to jump into – we don't do this very often, not as often as we used to. But from time to time, we like to read a listener review on the show. And by we, I mean Jason in the way that Jason can read reviews.
Which is poorly.
Poorly, but with a voice of confidence. Like, it's the most confident.
Well, let's find out.
Review-a-saurus Rex.
This one comes in from Texan G, the OG from Texas. He says, these guys are the GOAT. My wife was like, what does GOAT mean? Anyways, these guys are the GOAT. Shout out to Andy, Mike, and Jason for helping me get to #1 in my league. Thoroughly entertaining, so informative, and really go out of their way with the site rankings, the articles, the Twitter, and the Sunday Periscope. Look at that. He even appreciates you, Mike.
Yeah.
Can't thank you guys enough. Well, thank you, Texan G.
You did that very well.
All right.
This is why people enjoy that segment. So thank you very much for your review. Thank you for supporting the show via your reviews and subscriptions on iTunes and wherever else you're listening. We appreciate it. It helps the show out. You know, he thanked us for, site rankings and articles and Twitter and stuff. And I was thinking to myself, while you said that in that spectacular voice of yours, I don't think there's another, full-time podcast like we are. We are focused on it 24 hours a day. There's no peripheral. The podcast is the focus of everything we do. It's not diverted to other sports. It's not diverted anywhere else. And so we appreciate your review and thinking about that. And we'll definitely keep trying to make things better. Let's jump into the news.
News and notes from around the league.
I went out to lunch yesterday with my mother. That is not the news.
Okay.
When I came back from lunch, Mike was moping about a couple pieces of news. So I'll let him tell.
Well, you come back, you're like, oh, well, how was your lunch? So I said, well, both of my starting running backs are dead. So that's good.
Hyperbole.
Well, yeah, clearly they are still alive, but Shady McCoy left practice. He did not finish yesterday with a hamstring. It was diagnosed as mild to moderate.
Great. That's helpful.
Very helpful.
That's very good. He's considered questionable. He did not practice today. So pick up Mike Gillislee if he's available.
A number of guys didn't practice today. Terrelle Pryor did not practice on Thursday. Charles Clay didn't practice on Thursday. Steve Smith, Joe Flacco.
Really? Flacco didn't practice today?
And, Mike, you left out the other half of your story, which was that Doug,
oh, yes, sorry.
Doug Martin has apparently suffered a setback with his hamstring after the bye and will not play.
So here's what's so fantastic about this, as I already was very well aware, but Jason had to pie me in the face with this, was I've been the biggest doubter of Doug Martin preseason, beginning of the season. He got hurt. There was all the news that he's going to be back after the bye, and I was like,
you kept talking about how you don't trust his injury history. You don't think he's going to come back well. You think he could have a setback. And then you go and you trade the world to get him.
Yeah, and I went all in on him for that schedule. It was a situation where there's not very many running backs that you can go all in to actually acquire. So I did it for Doug Martin.
This is called death by irony.
I was going to say, I find it completely ironic that I am writing C.J. Anderson in this league, and you're writing Doug Martin in this league.
Well, I'm writing not Doug Martin
Jacquizz Rodgers,
because Doug Martin's never going to play for my team.
There was an update this morning.
Is that Doug Martin?
No, that's Eddie Lacy.
Oh.
Well, look, we've said it. Eddie Lacy back to 255, 265 pounds, basically the playing weight of last season. Does that mean P90X doesn't work, Mike?
No, it means Eddie Lacy has a large appetite for the foods. But look,
yards per carry has a good appetite for those this year.
We have argued about this in the office. For fantasy purposes, bad. Running back, real life NFL, Eddie Lacy's been very good. We need those to correlate, though.
Sure.
Doesn't look promising considering he's missing the next several weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, not likely. So let's speak to that real quick. Ty Montgomery looks to be the man that will receive the carries in lieu of Eddie Lacy, James Starks being out. Reports this morning said that he is likely to get the majority of running back reps. That doesn't necessarily mean he will get a ton of carries, but you'll get the opportunity to see him come out of the backfield with the ball like he did last week. And so we're going to talk about him more coming out.
Yeah, who we're not do we want to talk right now about the Don Jackson, Niles Davis cluster? Because here's the reality. We have no idea who it's going to be. Right now in practice, Niles Davis has been working with the scout team. We don't know if he's going to be active. I'm not even sure if Don Jackson's actually been promoted to the active roster right now. We have no idea who it's going to be, but in my opinion, this early and subject to change, I feel like they're basically what they're saying is they're going into this next game without a running back.
Yeah.
And they're fine with that. Ty Montgomery caught 10 passes last week because he was lined up as a running back, just went out for those little screens. That was how they ran the ball. This is a part of the reason why I actually like Aaron Rodgers this week, despite his massive struggles over the last year and a half.
There is no problem, and this isn't unprecedented. We just don't talk about it. I mean, when LeGarrette Blount's hurt and all they have is Brandon Bolden and James White, it's the same circumstance in New England. I mean, James White will get 2 or 3 carries and everything else is pass catching. Montgomery and Randall Cobb can take snaps behind Aaron Rodgers in the backfield. So this is something that, you don't get to play somebody in your RB spot. That's for sure. You don't get to throw Montgomery into your RB spot. So we'll move on. Chip Kelly says 49ers will use a rotation with Carlos Hyde now being out with the shoulder injury. But they only think one game. They only think he's going to miss one game. So do you roll the dice with him, with Davis?
If maybe your league is very deep and you're desperate.
Davis or Asiata?
I think I would roll Mike Davis in that situation.
Do you think Shaun Draughn gets work?
Yeah, I mean, he's talking about the rotation. Those are the two guys that they're going to be rotating between Mike Davis and Shaun Draughn. We saw the previous week before before the official, injury to Carlos Hyde, that Davis was already getting more work. So I feel like he's earned the trust. Shaun Drone's usage has gone down and down. So I expect that if they use a rotation, it's going to be predominantly Mike Davis.
I do not want to linger on practice reports of 50 players today when we have an in and out segment tomorrow on the show that we will cover all these guys. I will mention one more brief piece of news. Tyler Eifert did practice.
Woo!
So he, assuming he doesn't have a setback, it's looking okay. So we'll have more information on that tomorrow as well. I think we're going to move on to the forecast.
Fantasy Forecast.
We'll kick it off with updates to the Thursday night game, which is the Bears at the Packers tonight. Kadeem Carey is questionable for Thursday with the hamstring injury. Short week dealing with the hamstring. Not sure how much work he's going to get. Eddie Royal is out on Thursday night, and Zach Miller is expected to play despite his questionable tag. Anything else you guys think is worth mentioning? Devontae Adams is questionable as well.
The only thing I would say, I'm not saying to pick this guy up. I wouldn't, but we should just keep an eye out for the possibility. And as much as I hate to say it,
he's going to say
Jeff Janis.
Whee! Man.
Because if Devontae Adams is out, I think Janis takes that role. Jordy Nelson doesn't look like he's able to create separation and get down the field deep. If Janis could do that, maybe that helps cure some of the ails of Aaron Rodgers. Again, I'm not saying pick him up. I'm just saying pay attention to him tonight. If you watch the game, keep your eyes on him. See if he's the guy that fills that slot. Am I wrong? Does Jared Abbrederis come in and take that? Just keep your eyes open.
A reminder, teams on bye this week, Carolina and Dallas, and you have the Week 8 and Week 9 big boy buys. Big boy buys. Baltimore, Los Angeles, Miami, New York, Pittsburgh, and San Francisco coming up in Week 8. So prepare yourself for Bye-Pocalypse. We're jumping into the matchups. Let's talk London, the Giants and the Rams. You saw Eli Manning put up a better performance last week. Thank you, Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
What do you do at the running back position for the Giants in this matchup?
If you're going to play anybody, you play Rashad Jennings. He's back. He was catching some passes. It's a tough matchup against the Rams, but I think he's I'm like a running back 3, playable, but I'm not excited about it.
Yeah, does it? Bobby Rainey's been a little bit involved in weeks past. He's kind of pushed out of contention in fantasy leagues now.
Yeah.
You got Beckham, you got Shepard and Cruz. Shepard's slowed down a little bit. What is your long-term view of Shepard? Should he be owned still? I mean, is he a flex play in this matchup?
Maybe a flex play at the most. He's a droppable guy, in my opinion. We've seen it with these rookies now. Shepard, Tajay Sharp, they flashed when there was no tape on them. Players didn't know how their tendencies. They didn't know how to defend them, and now that NFL coaches are able to prepare for these guys, they're getting shut down.
The big thing about Eli, and we mentioned this on the show earlier in the week when Mike had the game for us, he's averaged 298 passing yards per game, so the distribution's there, but the touchdowns hadn't been there. So it still seems like there's going to be a wide receiver 2, but is it Shepard or Cruz in each matchup is kind of the situation. So let me bring up the wide receivers on the Rams side of things. Kenny Britt was the Raising Cane's Rising Star of the Week for Jason. Is that correct?
Yes. I think he's been, he has enough volume on the season to be able to trust him a little bit. Now, the Giants went out. They signed a corner this offseason. He's been doing very good, and so I don't expect a huge game from Britt here. But I think he's got a safe, I don't think he's going to go out and put up 3 for 36 the way that, say, across the field that I very much could see from either Cruz or Shepard. So if you just need kind of a somewhat safe 6 to 8 points in standard, then okay. But I'm not super excited about this specific matchup. I think the bright lights of being in London. Also, this is not at Wembley. We've talked in the past about how bad that field is in Wembley. This is not there, so this is a much better.
Well, it's unknown. It's I mean, we'll
I guess that's
we'll
true.
See.
We haven't seen.
We
them
have
play
to
here.
assume it's better than Wembley.
Certainly got to be better than the field at Wembley.
Is this line correct? What is the line in this game? It's -3. -3.
Yeah, I have the Giants -3.
Well, the other thing I looked at said -8. I think that's wrong. It's the Giants -3, 44.5 point over under. Any other, you're starting Gurley, okay? I wanted to say this from last week because we obviously have to go through all these matchups, and we do that in a way that we try to prioritize your fantasy decisions. Nobody's sitting Todd Gurley.
No.
And so we'll try to make sure we mention, these names and say, okay, you're starting Gurley, but if we ignore a player,
if we don't talk
it's
about
normally not an argument.
The number one quarterback or wide receiver for a team, that's because we already know what you already know what you're doing with them. You're starting them.
The Browns take on the Bengals this week. This is, in Cincinnati, 45.5 point over under. I have a question for you guys. I mean, what do you do if Pryor sits on the Cleveland side? Is there somebody that you could throw a dart at the wide receiver core to give you production? I mean, I know you're going to say Barnidge is going to receive those target share, and I think that's true. But, I mean, do you do anything at the wide receiver position? I mean, Lewis or
Hawkins. The truth is that
Ricardo.
You think it's Ricardo.
Yeah.
That's what I would do too.
Yeah, I lean towards Hawkins personally, but I'm not going to start any of those guys. If Pryor is out,
so many other options.
that doesn't. Yeah, exactly. There's guys off of waivers I still like better than them. Sometimes you have to play that fantasy roulette. I'm playing that this week in a couple different places. The Browns are not where I'm going to play my roulette. The bad odds. And so I think you're right. You got Gary Barnidge, who would probably take a bump as a big target, and that's about it. Other side of the ball.
Before I mix to the other side, I do want to stay on Crowell and Duke Johnson for a second. Crowell started the season on fire. He's slowed down significantly. Duke Johnson, I have a stat nugget for you guys, rushed for 10 or more yards on 7 of his 33 carries, which is the highest percentage in the NFL.
If you're going to qualify 33?
Yeah, I mean 21.2% of qualified, with them all qualified. So, I mean, we just talked about the fact that Todd Gurley hasn't been putting up big runs. Duke Johnson has been chunking a little bit.
Sure.
And I'd rather play Duke Johnson in this game than I would Crowell, is my point.
I agree because more than likely the Bengals can get out to a lead here, and in that situation – Duke Johnson has been involved. If Terrelle Pryor is out, maybe the guy that actually gets the bump could end up being Duke Johnson. We've seen, on the season, he's been averaging almost 4 catches a game. That's great. He's been doing a lot with them. No touchdowns so far on the season. And with that kind of volume, I'm sorry, he got 1 touchdown this last week at Tennessee. That was his first. I think Duke Johnson is an okay play this week.
So talk about the other side of the ball. You have Andy Dalton. You talked about what you're doing in your league.
Yeah, Andy Dalton.
You're playing him over Drew Brees.
I am playing him over Drew Brees in my personal league. I have Dalton
bold
rated very, very high. Very similar to what we just talked about with Eli Manning. Dalton's been great this year. He's in a zone. He just hasn't been throwing touchdowns. He's up near the top in yards. He's down near the bottom in turnovers. He's been playing very well. But who is his number one red zone target? I mean, obviously, A.J. Green gets plenty of touchdowns. But over the last couple of years, when he gets down to the red zone, the guy that has just been lights out is Tyler Eifert. You've got the Browns as a terrible matchup. You've got Tyler Eifert, who I don't think he's going to come in and play his full share. But you saw what they did with Gronk, right? Like,
just play him in the red zone.
Yeah, when you've got those tight ends like that, you leave him out from 20 to 20. You get inside that 20, you bring in Tyler Eifert, you got that big target. I think he throws a couple touchdowns. I think he runs for 15 yards. I think he puts up plenty of yards. And so I really like Andy Dalton this week. I actually also like Brandon LaFell. If you're talking about would I rather start Hawkins or LaFell.
Oh, it's LaFell.
Yeah. I mean,
here's the thing about the Bengals is just not necessarily a counterpoint, but a perspective piece here. Last year you saw Matt Ryan put up a lot of yardage and struggle with the touchdown totals. I think if you saw Dalton struggle in this matchup at home against the Browns, you have to put some responsibility on Dalton for the lack of touchdowns.
Sure.
If they're not getting running touchdowns, sure.
Speaking of the running,
in the sense that if they just end up able to score on them, I don't think that's a knock on Dalton.
what do we do with the Bengals running backs? You have this looks like a prime Jeremy Hill matchup. The Browns cannot stop the run, but you look at the past couple weeks, Gio Bernard's usage has gone way up. You know, you had 2 weeks ago, I know they were playing catch-up, but you had 75% of the snaps went to Gio. Last week, 66.2% of the snaps went to Gio Bernard. His touches are way up. He's being far more efficient than Jeremy Hill. So what if you guys had the option of the two, I'm putting you in a half-point PPR, who are you starting?
It has to be Gio.
That's how funny.
That you were going the other way?
Well, I think I would start Gio because he's fine. Like, I'm not worried about Gio not doing well. I do think that there's a decent chance Hill has a good game.
Yeah,
let's just put it that way.
Makes complete
I think
sense.
this is lined up. I mean, the Bengals are 10-point favorites. It's lined up for Hill to do what he does, which is volume.
Yeah,
and touchdowns.
I'm fine starting both of those guys. Honestly, there's not a Bengal that I don't like in this game.
I love Tigers.
The Redskins take on the Lions. The Lions are 1.5-point favorites in this game at home. The over-under's at 49.5. I think we can expect some points to be put up on the board here with, you know, defenses that are ranking in the bottom third of the league. And, you know, I love, and this is an allusion to later, hint, hint, love Kirk Cousins this week.
Yeah, I
really don't
agree.
And I wouldn't hesitate to start Matthew Stafford either, because this is just at home. Stafford coming off a 4-touchdown game, right?
Yep, he's coming off 4 touchdowns against the LA Rams. You're going to have plenty of points put on the clock. I mean, look, the
get him up there.
One of the
clock.
things that that quarterbacks love this season in the NFL is playing the Lions. That's a really fun thing to do. And so if Kirk Cousins is putting up points, then then it's just going to end up going back and forth. I tweeted out, like, I really want players in this game because I can't see this game script, and of course now it will happen, but I can't see this game script where the defenses of both teams rise up. Neither offense can get it going. It's kind of a field goal type of game. They're in a dome. The weather's not an issue. The field's not an issue. The health of the players involved are not an issue other than Jordan Reed being out. Yeah, light them up. I mean, you're going to have back and forth action here.
Now, I got a question for you guys. I had to get the antacids. I had to get the Pepto. I had to, all of them. Tums, Rolaids, everything.
Sounds
anti-nausea.
Like you over-medicated, but go ahead.
I have Matt Jones as a running back 1 this week.
Well, you should. It's about darn time. Hey, you said you owed him a didn't you say you owed him an apology if he performed last week?
I did. Dang it.
Yes. This is painful. I cannot wait.
Matt Jones. Some things were said about you in the preseason.
You can quote him.
I don't want to drudge up the past. We're all about the future. On this show, we are a forward, positive thinking show. Matt Jones, I'll say this: you're good for fantasy football.
4.9 a carry, Mike.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious, Mike. You're gonna have to extend
You're
that
gonna
apology
have to make this
beyond
a real apology,
beyond
bro.
fantasy.
Matt.
He can't do it.
I love the look on his face when I told him to. He goes, "What?"
Matt Jones, I'm sorry.
There it is. All right.
I'm sorry.
I have him
playing great.
in standard leagues at my 7th ranked running back and half point, top 10 at 10.
All right. We have hurt tight ends in this game, Reed and Ebron. Do you expect either guy to play?
No.
Is Ebron already declared out?
No, he's not declared out.
He's missing practice.
Okay.
Jordan Reed will be. He is apparently seeing a specialist tomorrow, so we shall see. The nice thing is that Vernon Davis has filled in
admirably.
Yeah, and Kirk Cousins. That's where it's a huge thing. Kirk Cousins' numbers when Jordan Reed is out, bad, really, really bad, because he needs that big tight end target, and Vernon Davis has saved him, so Kirk Cousins can continue to be a strong quarterback play.
This game we have to linger on because there's just so many different decisions to be made here. The wide receiver position, Marvin Jones. You couldn't sustain the otherworldly numbers that the season started with. But last week, Jones owners didn't get I think he got in the end zone, right? But it was like 2 catches.
2 catches, but
and
one
then
was a
Golden
touchdown.
Tate had a monster game.
Yes.
And everybody rushed to the waiver wire on Tate. What is your kind of, give me your perspective on the wide receiver core there. It's still Jones, but do you think he's a 1 the rest of the season?
Marvin Jones?
Yeah.
I think you can still consider him up there. I mean, Matt Stafford's playing great, and Marvin Jones is a huge beneficiary of it. He's not like a top 5 guy where those first couple weeks you thought, oh, maybe
he is.
Maybe I stole one here. He's returning to the norm, but he's still a great play every single week, especially this week.
I think Golden Tate having his mojo and his confidence restored, playing at home. I can't imagine that Josh Norman is going to be the guy really kind of going, oh, I got to get Golden Tate. He's really been lighting teams up this year. So Golden Tate could be a decent start this week. Marvin Jones is fine. The only thing I would say is from the Lions' perspective, Dwayne Washington appears back. Zach Zenner ran well last week. Forsett is supposed to get more work involved. You stay away from all of them.
And they'll probably have to pass the ball a ton.
Assuming that Theo Riddick misses, which
true.
It's not looking good right now. If Riddick plays, he's a great start. Hey, before we move to the Raiders and the Jaguars, I want to tell you about today's sponsor. That is Clear. Look, you may not have heard of this, Foot Clan, but this is incredible.
It's awesome.
I'm no stranger to the airport. And you know what I'm doing now with the airport? I'm bringing my family. I'm bringing the 3 kids. You know what we got to do? Stand in that freaking security line.
Blech.
The absolute worst. You head to the airport 3 hours early because, you're sitting in that line for 90 minutes at the minimum. There is a better way to do it, and that is Clear. Clear is like a VIP ticket straight to the checkout, straight to the security check. Go to the airport, go to the Clear line where a very friendly Clear ambassador greets you. Look, they put pride in being friendly, being warm. Like going to the airport, we know these TSA people, the job kind of stinks.
Cold and sad.
And it comes across with the way they treat you. Not at Clear. They treat you like a human being.
We're all Clear members.
This is what you do. You go, you tap your finger on the kiosk, it scans your fingerprint, your boarding pass, boom. They escort you right to the screening lane. It's that simple, stress-free at the airport, and you can sign up today, and you use Clear right away. There's no waiting period. You sign up, and you go do it. There's no appointments. You go to the airport. You skip the line. Clear is the absolute best way to get through the airport. You'll never do it any other way. You have to experience it. And for a limited time, Foot Clan, Clear is letting new members get 2 months free of Clear. You go to clearme.com and you use the code BALLERS. That's CLEARME.com. Use the code BALLERS. I am telling you.
That's awesome.
I'm telling you.
If you fly a lot,
the airport
you're going to love it.
Is the worst, and Clear is slowly doing their part to make it great again.
That's awesome. And we do want to thank Pristine Auction, longtime sponsor of the show, good friend of the show. Look, nobody's better. Nobody's better on the internet. Sports memorabilia.
Nobody.
Daily, hundreds of daily auctions. Look, I took a look today. All you Wintsylvania fans out there, there's a Carson Wentz signed helmet up for the daily auction today. There's a signed Rob Gronkowski jersey up on the daily auctions. And look, if you're a Packer fan, I saw this. I was like saying, this is amazing.
Glowing over it.
There is a signed Bart Starr, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers championship canvas.
Ooh.
And these canvases are awesome for the wall. Hundreds of other items, NFL and beyond. You have to check them out. PristineAuction.com. Good friends of the show. And when you sign up over there, which is just free, you can browse the auctions, bid on the auctions. When you sign up, let them know that the Fantasy Footballers sent you. This is a great company. They are A+ certified on the Better Business Bureau, so you know and can trust what they're doing. They're not trying to pull one over on you. This is authentic, real merchandise. Really great company. Check them out. PristineAuction.com. PRISTINE auction.com.
They've got Dak fever lately.
Do they? There's a lot of Dak.
Cowboy fans, if you got the Dak attack fever, woo! Pristine Auction has you covered.
Yeah, I have some Cowboy fans in my family.
That's unfortunate.
And look, they made a really good point though about what happened when Russell Wilson was a home run for Seattle. What did that do for that team?
When you find a franchise, we talk about this all the time in the studio. If you find a franchise quarterback not in the first round, you had to trade everything to get him. Your team is changed
because you don't have to pay them.
Right. Yes.
I mean, you have
for years.
You've got years of Dak at a low price. You can invest elsewhere. It helps your team so much. So they're excited is what I'm saying. And I would be too. You know, the Cardinals, we've got Carson Palmer over here, and it's great for now, but
we got a couple weeks left.
I want the future. You know what our future is going to be? I can tell you right now.
Gross.
At least 7 or 8 more years of Josh McCown. Bring him back.
Oh,
yes.
I'd take him.
He's going to play till he's 60.
I'd take him.
Till 60,
Over Drew Stanton?
60 concussions. All right. The Raiders take on the Jaguars, jumping right back into the matchups. This is an interesting game. I've had a hard time deciding what to do with Derek Carr this week, whether I want to play him or my stream of the week, Marcus Mariota. I have decided. Would you like to hear my declaration?
I would, and the Foot Clan would.
I'm playing Marcus Mariota.
Mariota.
Yeah, Mariota. Because Derek Carr's been really good this year. I think he's the 6th-ranked fantasy quarterback by our scoring system. That being said, they're traveling to Jacksonville, and while Jacksonville appears, if you look at the whole season, appears to not be great against fantasy quarterbacks, I asked these guys before the show, how many touchdowns have they given up to quarterbacks in the last 3 weeks? And the answer is 2. 2 total touchdowns in 3 weeks for the Jacksonville defense. Jalen Ramsey's making his presence felt on that defense. It doesn't mean I don't think Carr can have a good game. This is not a sit Carr. This is I prefer Mariota at home against Indianapolis. That's just the plain and simple fact about it. So that's my perspective on Carr. What do you do with Bortles in Robinson and that offense? Jacksonville hasn't had it together yet this year, but they've won a couple games in a row.
Right.
Chance to win another one at home. Winnable game against the Raiders. What do you make of your decisions on the Jacksonville offense side of the
I love them.
of the football?
I love the Jacksonville passing attack this week. I should actually just say the Jacksonville offense, because to say I love the passing attack infers that they have a running game.
I just did a double take because I thought for a second you were saying that you also liked the Chris Ivory and Yeldon this week, and I was very surprised.
I actually don't have a problem with Chris Ivory this week, as gross as that sounds.
But Mike,
yeah, yes,
Mike,
voice of public opinion.
TJ Yeldon, they said that he's taking over the workhorse role.
Yeah, over the weekend he had a stranglehold as the 3-down back. How'd that work out? Getting out touched about 2-1 by Chris Ivory.
I would start Yeldon over Ivory this week.
No.
You can.
Yes, I would.
Really?
Put it on the board.
Water bet.
The Yeldon truthers can ride or die with TJ Yeldon. Here's the deal. Why?
Yeah, I want to come back to this one next
I
week.
think
Sure.
you meant to say and. The TJ Yeldon truthers can ride
then,
and
ride
die.
then, ride then,
Ride
die.
then die.
Look, the Raiders. The Raiders defense.
Hey, this is all I have to do is beat Ivory here, guys. I'm
That's
not
all right.
I'm not making a high claim on Yeldon anymore.
Stay away.
Right,
Hey, everybody
Hey.
out there, don't play Chris Ivory, don't play TJ Yeldon.
Look, if the Jaguars at home against the 30th ranked run defense, you can't do anything in the running game.
I
They should
agree.
just replace the roster spots. I mean, at this point,
Go.
you got to go Ty Montgomery style.
Exactly. But look, the Raiders defense, they're allowing 20 or more yards on 28 of 143 receptions. Look, almost 20% of receptions are going for 20 more yards against the Raiders. They're getting gouged by big plays. And Blake Bortles and Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns, that's what they do. That is their especial.
So
is going
we're
down
going to
the
talk
field.
more about Robinson in a bit, aren't we?
Yeah, so I love both of those guys.
Other
And-
side of the ball, Cooper coming on with a fury right now. Only 1 touchdown on the year, about 4 fake touchdowns. Big yardage numbers in the last couple of weeks. Big reception numbers. Is Cooper taking over from Crabtree? If rest of the season, you'd rather own Cooper or Crabtree?
Ooh.
I'd probably rather own Cooper, just because I think they're going to be near the same. They're going to be near the same. I think from this week on, they'll be very close to each other in fantasy points. But if I was ever going to need to make a trade, Cooper has so much more value. I mean, the name and the upside, the age and the speed, and people just love Amari Cooper.
Glisten in his eye.
Yeah, so handsome.
His ability to step. His ability to step on the out of bounds line with one toe every time he catches a touchdown pass.
Just barely.
Just barely.
Just barely.
Anything else about this game we want to get into? I guess the running backs, we're still waiting to hear if Latavius Murray is going to start. I anticipate he will play.
Yeah, he's back at practice.
I projected him for about 11, 12 carries. I projected Washington and Richard to be in that 5 carry range each, and I think that's how you'll see the distribution as of today, but we'll talk more about that tomorrow.
Sure.
Couple more matchups, then we're getting into our starts of the week. Guys, let's talk about the Saints and the Chiefs. The Chiefs are hosting this matchup. They are 6.5-point favorites. Jason has already said he's sitting Drew Brees because if you look at the
I am sitting Drew Brees behind Andy Dalton.
Correct.
I'm not telling anybody to sit
I apologize.
Drew Brees.
Yes, Drew Brees coming off a 44.5-point week, so you still have some cojones to sit him.
Yeah, I mean,
in your context, you still have to step out on a ledge and say, hey, I'm going to play this Drew Brees home-away split game.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. Drew Brees has not been quite the same quarterback on the road that he is at home. He usually isn't, and that's even in plus matchups. Now you've got, the fact that he's going to Kansas City, and Kansas City, look, if you just look at like how is a team ranked, and we'll talk about this quite a bit in our starts of the week, but when you just look at like Kansas City's overall ranking on defense is blank, it's not a good way to investigate matchups, because for instance, Kansas City, they had that game where all of a sudden Pittsburgh just showed up, that Le'Veon Bell game, where Drew Brees or Ben Roethlisberger threw 5 touchdowns. He was amazing. Outside of that single game, they've only given up 3 touchdowns to quarterbacks on the year. They haven't given up another 300-yard game. They're a very good defense. Their home field advantage is great, and that's where Drew Brees struggles. If he can't communicate as well, he is not the elite option that he usually is.
I think that's good perspective, and you have a Saints offense that is first in the league right now in points per game, but everything's stacked against them this week. You have seen Cook struggle on the road, you've seen Brees struggle on the road, and you saw a very good performance from the Kansas City defense last week. So you're starting Ingram because he's Mark Ingram.
Yeah, you have.
He's a starting running back. Snead has fallen out of fantasy favor at this point. I don't like him as a start this week. And Cooks, you're going to play him, but if you have, a comparable better option, if it's Allen Robinson or Brandon Cooks, it's not a question this week.
It's Allen Robinson.
Kobe Fleener, you buying in?
I am buying in what he did last week. Now, it's interesting to note he had the lowest snap percentage for himself of the season. Josh Hill was very involved. I believe that going forward, what Fleener showed is that he is really, really valuable and that he's going to have a connection, and that's good. So I am buying into Fleener. Andy and I talked about this in the office. Fleener might put up some stinky games, right? But anytime that you don't have one of those Greg Olsons or Gronks or, that's
it. Jordan Reed.
Right. Yeah, Jordan Reed when he's healthy. Any other tight end that you have out there, you're going to have just as big an option every single week that he puts up 5 or less points with every tight end in the league. But Kobe Fleener's upside is far higher than most of those other
25 points. There's 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Exactly. And you're not going to get that out of your other
Jack Doyles
average.
of the world.
Right.
You aren't. You really aren't.
Yeah.
On the other side of the ball, you have the running back circumstance here. We're going to talk about Spencer Ware in the starts of the week.
Ooh.
You've got Jamal Charles. Andy Reid said he's not ready for a full workload. And, look, the Chiefs don't need a full workload from Jamal Charles when Spencer Ware's playing so well. Jeremy Maclin, I told Jason this. We were kind of debating this before the game. This is, if you can't perform in this matchup, to me, you're probably not what you thought we were.
Oh, the dirty cake.
The dirty cake. You're going up against the 31st ranked pass defense and a team that should be able to put points on the board. At least enough. 50.5 point over under, you're talking about a 24-21 game, a 28-21 game. So if Macklin's not involved this week, if Kelsey isn't involved this week, I'm punting this passing offense the rest of the season. Because I don't want to play that game anymore. I don't want to be waiting for Maclin. What's an upside game for Maclin? 6 for 77? Ooh.
You got to be sad about that.
I'm not happy, but I also think that I think he will perform in this game. Maclin was on the table for me for a start of the week. Let's put it that way.
All right.
And I know Jason and I disagree on that.
Yeah, and I also wouldn't punt on Maclin if he doesn't perform. Put it this way. If this game was in New Orleans, oh my goodness, Maclin would be my start of the week. Because I have all confidence that New Orleans would be going back and forth. This over-under of 50.5, I'd take the over. Right now I'm taking the under because it's in Kansas City. And if you look at what wide receivers have done in those games, I mean, think about when it was in New York, right? When Odell Beckham.
Right.
He had a terrible game, and Eli Manning didn't do as much because it was surprisingly a low-scoring game. Same with Phillip Rivers when it was in San Diego.
Are you willing to put a top 24 for Macklin?
24 is
top 15?
Yeah, I would do a top 15.
Whoa!
Water bet.
The bets are flying today.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be top 15, but
sure. I'm taking a risk. I agree that there is a percentage chance that the way you're seeing the game takes place. I don't doubt that. I just think the odds are in his favor in this matchup. We need to move on. Got to get into the starts of the week. Need to talk about the Bills and the Dolphins. Are you excited about that?
Very.
What was?
I don't know what happened right there.
Now, are
Mike
you?
always finds it just disproportionately entertaining when I make a mistake.
Because you don't get to actually see your physical reaction to it.
That's true. I
There's-
had no idea what was going on.
There's the combination of it's startling to my ears, it's startling to your ears, and you're
sure.
Yeah, 'cause
you're frantically swiping, trying to stop things.
You're the only one in charge of that.
Yeah,
so-
I can't do anything but sit and,
All right,
and
now
enjoy
I have
the
a
show.
question. This Bills Dolphins game, were you actually excited?
No,
Okay.
no, certainly not.
So what are we expecting here? The streak to continue for the Bills? Or you had the Dolphins win at home last week against Pittsburgh. They're at home again this week, but they're underdogs. And this game does not have a high over-under, and I approve Vegas of your estimation here. LeSean McCoy might miss. That is a huge detriment to that offense.
Yeah,
because Mike Gillislee may start, but you're not going to get the slippery fish
no,
from Mike Gillislee.
You won't get the slippery fish, but I think you'll get a fine game if McCoy is in fact ruled out. The Dolphins are the 31st ranked against the run, so they're giving up yardage. So I still think Gillislee is a fine play, but you're right that McCoy would change the team.
Gillislee or Jacquizz Rodgers if both guys were starting?
Oh, Jacquizz Rodgers. Man, I love him this week.
All right, you got Robert Woods in the passing game for yeah, I mean, you're just not that excited about that. You can probably count on 5 or 6 catches. So you could do worse than Robert Woods.
I'm vetting this real quick. I'm not sure if Woods practiced today.
No.
I'm gonna take a look.
Yeah.
Look skis.
You know who did practice in full?
Charles Clay?
On the other side of the ball is Arian Foster.
Oh.
So just when you think you got something in Jay Ajayi, Andy, you have followed this situation because you were an Arian Foster guy before. You've been a Jay Ajayi guy. Who is it? Who can you start? Can you start Jay Ajayi this week with any confidence?
No, not with any confidence. Because you're facing a pretty tough defense that has been on a roll, 4 straight wins, playing well. I would start Ajayi over Foster. I think that's the question. So I would start Ajayi over Foster. I would. Let me put it this way. People are holding Foster. If this week is a full Ajayi week and you're talking 5 carries for Foster and 12 to 15 for Ajayi, I'm fine cutting Foster at that point. Now, you might hold him to be the handcuff of Ajayi at that point, but I'm buying into the fact that Ajayi earned himself a workhorse opportunity in this game.
So the update on Robert Woods, he did not practice today or yesterday. He was also spotted wearing a walking boot. Rex Ryan claims he's not concerned, but I can't imagine that Woods is looking likely to play, which makes, for me, Charles Clay turns into a sneaky snart this week if you're struggling at the tight end.
Yeah, I like it. Clay's had a lot of productive games on the season. The Bills or the Dolphins are a middle-of-the-road team against tight end, and you have to pass the ball to someone.
That's very true. Well, I don't know. Tyrod Taylor doesn't have to pass very much.
Yeah. So is Taylor a streamable player this week if he loses McCoy and Woods?
If he loses McCoy and Woods,
No,
I would not be starting
for me.
Tyrod Taylor.
Not for me.
Other side of the ball, what decisions on the wide receiver core there? You're starting Landry because you normally do, but that's it.
Yep, that's it for me.
All right, we need to move on. Let's get into the starts.
Starts of the week.
Mike, I'm going to let you kick this off. You choose the position, and you get us going.
Well, I'm going to start with the big dogs then. We're going to start with the quarterback. We referred to them a little bit earlier in this show. I'm going with Blake Bortles. Look, Oakland has to cross the entire country. It is not
On foot?
Yes,
Wow.
they left 2 weeks ago, and they hope to arrive tomorrow.
Should be a documentary on that at least.
Usually, and in speaking in very general terms, when West Coast teams have to go to the East Coast, play in the morning, it doesn't usually end up very well for that West Coast team. They're already a bad passing defense. They've had multiple games giving up 4 passing touchdowns. So I like Blake Bortles, the ultimate garbage man. I like him taking out the trash this week. I think he gets it done.
Jason, who's your quarterback start of the week?
I think there's no surprise here. It's Andrew Dalton. Look, could the Bengals just run the ball on the Browns and not need Andy Dalton at all? Absolutely. But could you see A.J. Green having another one of those 152 touchdown games and go nuts, and Tyler Eifert come back and grab a 3rd touchdown? Because I sure can. So I have no problem with Andy Dalton. I like him. I'm starting him, and I'll be so sad if he stinks. But he's looked good to me this year.
Especially if you're starting him. You'll
Yeah,
be
I
real
know.
sad.
I will.
I'm going to go with Kirk Cousins. Talked about him earlier. He takes on Detroit. Detroit's the 32nd ranked defense against quarterbacks in fantasy. The Lions' defense has allowed a passer rating of 119.1 this season, dead last in the league, and at least 2 touchdowns per week. And that's selling it short, saying at least 2 touchdowns per week, because it's actually 2.8. So, look, great matchup for Kirk Cousins. Really like him as a start this week. There are quite a few streamable quarterbacks this week, but Cousins is on the top of my list right there. So, Mike, who's your running back?
My running back, I'm going with the handcuff here. I'm going with Jacquizz Rodgers, taking on the mighty San Francisco 49ers rushing defense. Did you know that the 49ers are allowing 174 rushing yards a game?
It's not been pretty ever since they lost
Bowman.
Navarro Bowman.
The second worst, that's Miami, and they're allowing 147. So 30 yards worse on average is what San Francisco is allowing. We saw Jacquizz Rodgers in a ultimate beast mode 3-down work roll last week. He had 35 touches. Doug Martin's out for who knows how long. I like Jacquizz. I know they added Anton Smith, but that's, I think, simply a depth move because you can't give Rodgers 35 touches every single week, but I still like him to touch the ball very frequently and have great success.
Love Rodgers.
Jason.
Yeah, so I love Jacquizz Rodgers this week. I do not like my start of the week rest of season, and that is Tevin Coleman. I've said it before. I don't believe that he can keep the pace of what he's doing through the air. He's never rushed for 50 yards on the season. Look, I've recommended selling Tevin Coleman, but if you have him, start him. I got no problem with Tevin Coleman this week. Here's the deal. The reason I don't like him is because he has to have like a cajillion yards through the passing game in order to be effective. And that's what he's done this year, but you just can't do that. Except this week against San Diego. If you look at San Diego and you go, depending on which format you look at, but let's just say you're looking at how many fantasy points they give up to the position, to running backs, and you go, oh, wow, they're terrible, right? I think they're 29th in fantasy points given up to the running back position. Here's the deal. They have not yet given up 100 yards on the ground to the team, not to a player, but no team has rushed for 100 yards. So how in the world can they be the 29th worst against running backs? It's because running backs have eaten them up through the air, and they've been scoring touchdowns. That's basically what Tevin Coleman's been doing this year. I don't like Tevin Coleman. I don't want to start him most weeks. If you have him, I recommend trading him. But go ahead and start him this week because he should be okay.
No, I like him, and I love Freeman.
All right.
Yeah, I like
both.
both.
I love Freeman.
I thought about doing
high.
the two-headed monster. I think both guys are going to be really good this week.
Spencer Ware is my start of the week at the running back position. He takes on New Orleans. Spencer Ware, if you look this up, he's averaged 7.1 yards from scrimmage per touch. So when the ball is in Spencer Ware's hands, whether handed off or passing, he gets it done. He gets it done. In fact, that number, 7.1, is number 1 in the league, tied with Tevin Coleman. So those two guys, when you put the ball in their hands, they get it done. Spencer Ware is coming off a career-best week, and now he takes on New Orleans at home. This is a great opportunity for them to not overstretch Jamal Charles. Spencer Ware's playing so well. I think you can absolutely start him this week.
All right, I'm gonna finish off the stack here because I got Blake Bortles at my quarterback. That means I love Allen Robinson. I know that the fantasy community, we're growing concerned about Allen Robinson. You're talking about a guy averaging less points per game than the down with the sickness with the Beazles. The Beazles is averaging more points per game than Allen Robinson, but I am very comfortable firing him up. Full confidence start this week. Allen Robinson is averaging 8 PPR points on the road.
That's not good.
When he's at home, Allen Robinson is averaging 18
That's really good.
PPR points. Look, all of his touchdowns at home. He's averaging about double the receptions when he's at home against a bad passing defense. So I want to give the fantasy players out there, give you confidence that you should be playing Allen Robinson this week.
I like it. All right, my wide receiver start of the week is I said earlier I'm playing a little bit of roulette this week, I like to live dangerous. But I'm going to start.
That's my son now.
I'm going to start Tyrell Williams this week. I've said it before. There's so many pass-catching options in San Diego. You just don't know who to go with. But Atlanta this is a game that I expect a lot of points to be put up. Phillip Rivers can go on the road, and he can run up the score with Atlanta. Atlanta's offense has been great. San Diego's defense has been bad. So if there's a back and forth here with a lot of points, I think there's going to be the wide receivers being involved. Travis Benjamin is the one, but Travis Benjamin should be Truffanted. Trufant has been really good. Remember that big, giant back and forth game between New Orleans and Atlanta where Brandon Cooks didn't show up despite the fact that there were so many points scored? He got Truffanted. And I think Trufant's going to be on Travis Benjamin. Tyrell Williams will be running free. I think if you've got him, this is another one of those guys like Tevin Coleman, Tyrell Williams. This seems like a good matchup this week. I would be willing to start him if I've got him. If they blow up like they should,
you're putting your money on Tyrell. I'm going with Ty Montgomery against Chicago tonight. No Lacy, no Starks, likely no Devontae Adams. And look, he's going to get the majority of the running back carries. He was 10 for 98 last week through the air, and they need to work him into this offense. There's no choice. There's no worry for me that Ty Montgomery is going to give you a stinker. It's just whether he can get up above the 8-9 points that I think is his baseline this week. But if you have a chance of being the guy that scores in the Green Bay offense because the options are limited, you get the running back carries, you get the passes out of the backfield that you can do something with. He has great top speed. I think Ty Montgomery is a great play this week.
Yeah.
He's my start of the week.
Ty Montgomery, for me, I really like him. What he represents to me is 10 points. And I like that. Like,
sure.
He's 10 points. I don't think he's going to really stink it up. And then he's got the chance at a touchdown.
Yeah. So, Mike, let's go ahead.
I would say a friendly reminder, if you're going to play Ty Montgomery or say
yes.
Meredith, put them in the wide receiver or the running back slot. Do not leave them in your flex. Don't screw yourself over for the weekend. Just a friendly reminder.
Yep. All right, let's wrap it up here with the tight end.
I'm going to take us home with the tight end, Travis Kelce. New Orleans has played 2 tight ends of note. And when I say two tight ends, I mean Greg Olsen and the San Diego Boys. I'm lumping them into one tight end.
Henry Gates?
Yes. They got crushed by both of those teams. So if you look at New Orleans on the year, they're not really giving up points to the tight end because they're not playing a tight end of note, someone who can actually put up points. Travis Kelce is kind of one of those wishy-washy guys. You're never quite sure. But I like the matchup this week. So he's my start of the week at the tight end spot.
All right, Jason.
I got Kyle Rudolph. I've had a lot of people talking about how they're sitting him this week because, of course, right, he's going up against Philly's number 2 ranked defense against the tight end. And what I'm saying here is that 2 things. One, I think Kyle Rudolph is important to Sam Bradford. Is going to be used. But also, I think Philly's number 2 ranking against tight end is a complete sham. I'm not saying they're a bad defense. I've said all season I think Philly's underrated defense. But they're not as good against tight end as you believe this far into the season. And here's why. Week 1, well, they had Cleveland, who's got, that week 1 was RG3. Completely different offense that wasn't really looking Gary Barnidge's way at all. Then week 2, you have Chicago, and that was when Jay Cutler went down halfway through the game. Then Hoyer comes in. There's no game plan. There's no script there. Week 3, well, you play Detroit, right? Eric Ebron, he's good, except he was missing. He wasn't. So they didn't have a tight end. Then Washington, And Washington actually had, 50 yards and a touchdown, but that was without Jordan Reed. So my point here is just I think the matchups have really played to their favor. I'm not saying they're bad against the tight end, but I don't think they're the number 2. I'm not scared. Plus, you got Sammy Biscuits coming home.
That's what I'm saying.
I ain't scared.
Revenge game.
Revenge game.
All right. I'm going to close out our starts of the week with my tight end, Doyle rules.
Doyle rules.
Jack Doyle. Dwayne Allen is out. Jack Doyle's coming off a 4 for 53 game with a touchdown last week. He's actually the 8th best tight end on the season right now. So,
tight ends.
So I mean, if you need to start him, yeah, I'd feel great about it. I mean, if you need a tight end this week, I think Doyle's just fine. I mean, you have a matchup that I think, divisional game. Mariota's been playing well. I think there'll be some points on the board, and I think Jack Doyle's going to have to come through for them. So I have no problem with him with Dwayne Allen out.
I really like him. I picked him up in our league. He's so involved. He's pretty much the number 2 pass-catching option right now this week for Indianapolis. That's great. Asking for a friend, who would you rather start, Cameron Brate or Jack Doyle?
I was really on the fence with it. I'd love to say Brate. So, Brate.
Okay.
I'm going to take a look. I got Cameron Brate back-to-back with Jack Doyle, separated by 0.2.
Who's ahead?
Whoever scores is the guy I want.
Cameron Brate.
Okay, good.
Whichever of those two.
I just dropped Doyle and picked up Brate.
Once again, thanks again to Clear so much for sponsoring today's episode. They're the
Check
best.
them out, people.
Yes, they're the best way to get through the airport. I'm telling you, you'll never do it any other way again once you've experienced Clear.
Little known fact, when we went to, Mike has a TSA pre, and so if you have a TSA pre combined with this,
combo.
It's amazing.
Combo.
But Mike, traditionally with his TSA pre, which lets him, accomplish slightly better speed.
Yes.
Likes to take pictures of me standing in the security line and laugh at me.
Yes, I do.
And then text them to me while I'm in the security line.
No longer.
Yeah.
So now it's a lot nicer. So
and so they're I'm telling you, the best way to get through the airport. New members get 2 months free of Clear if you go to clearme.com and you use the code Ballers. That's clearme.com. Use code Ballers.
Also want to take just a moment here. From time to time we have people reach out, tell us how this show has, gone beyond football for them. Whether it's the daily routine of listening to us talk about the game or the camaraderie that fantasy football brings between friends. I just want to reach out and kind of give a shout out to Nick, who is known as the Raving Barbarian in his league, which is an incredible name.
That's not bad.
Look, Nick had a league mate and a friend reach out to us and let him know that Nick and their family, his daughter Adeline, are going through some tough times. I just want to take a second to encourage them, let them know that your friends are caring about you. You've got our thoughts and prayers here at the Fantasy Footballers.
Keep your head up.
Yeah, so I wanted to give you some encouragement. Quick shout out there. And that does it for today's show. We'll be back with the matchups tomorrow. The second half, the actual second half of the
tomorrow
matchup.
is the first half of the matchups.
You should have kept me to it and made me do the second half today. But no, we have the second half tomorrow. We've got Chris Meany of the Fantasy Sports Network coming on to give you some DFS picks, and we'll get you ready with In and Out for all of the weekend games. Good luck tonight on the Thursday night football game. Hopefully your week gets off to a stellar start. And thanks to Fantasy Jocks for sponsoring the studio. Always check them out for your trophy needs, championship belts.
The promo code is
Ballers.
Footballers.
Footballers.
Not ballers.
Yeah, footballers. But
Time for the Footcast.
Yeah, let's do it. See ya.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.